Welcome, fellow plebs. My name is Sean, and this is
Tribunus Plebis.
All right, hello, everybody. Today, we are going to take a listen to a podcast put out by the REI Corporation, or the REI Co-op, I guess, which was recorded and published as part of their assault on the rights of their employees to negotiate as a unit and as members of a union. We are going to listen to this drivel together as a unit, and we are going to shit on it together through one voice, my voice. Sorry about that, but I'm the guy with the mic here. The backstory here is simple. Employees of the SoHo REI store have decided to try to form a union, and the company is fighting back, and this podcast is part of their union-busting effort. So a listener suggested I listen and react to it, so I said, screw it, let's rock with it. And let's get going.
Hi, REI. My name is Wilma Wallace, and I serve as your Chief Diversity and Social Impact Officer. I use she, her pronouns, and am speaking to you today from the traditional lands of the Ohlone people. So I'm here chatting with Eric.
Okay, right here, before the episode started, I did Google and read a lot about REI, and the two main antagonists in this story, Wilma, who just introduced herself, and Eric, the CEO. And I just want to point something out here. Wilma is calling herself the Chief Diversity and Social Impact Officer, which is, maybe it's really a title. I don't know. But on her LinkedIn profile, she is listed as the General Counsel for REI, Legal Compliance and Corporate Governance. And she is also a board member of REI. Not mentioning her primary job here, Legal Counsel for REI for Legal and Compliance, and that she's a board member as well, it just seems like a little bit of like an obfuscation of why she's really here, which is to protect REI and Eric.
Arts, who serves the co-op and all of us as CEO. Eric, welcome. I know you emailed all employees 2 weekends ago to let us know what was going on in SoHo before we saw it in the news. And we know employees have lots of questions about what's going on. So just to recap for the audience, on Friday, January 21st, we were notified.
So this is already different than what I was expecting. The intros are way longer than what I saw printed out. So I guess I'll just speak about this first part and part of the CEO's introduction now, rather than wait until Eric speaks like I was going to do, just so it doesn't run on forever. First, the pronoun thing. I don't want to lie to you folks, I was never a big fan of the pronouns. Telling people, what pronouns you use. It always seemed like a little more than a weird indicator of wokeness or whatever. But over the past couple of years, I've been blessed to spend a bunch of time on a Discord server with a bunch of transgender and non-binary and other LGBTQ people. And, by a bunch, I guess I just mean like maybe 5 or 6 people who are really open about this stuff and talk about it. And this is after a lifetime of never knowingly meeting or spending time with a trans or non-binary person that I know of. And these conversations, they really opened my eyes and heart up a lot when I heard their stories and their struggles and their successes. And it has really changed my opinion on pronoun declarations. I was never anti any LGBTQ group. I just want to throw that out there. But I guess I just didn't understand a lot of this stuff. And if you keep listening and hearing people tell you how much something hurts, and you don't think a little bit differently about it, I think that you might just have a little something wrong with you. So yeah, go ahead and declare pronouns. And then we have the speaking to you from the traditional lands of stuff. I mean, listen, I guess there's nothing wrong with either of these things in a vacuum, right? Hey, please use she, her, and this is stolen land. Okay, yeah, we get it. We know this is all true. So again, nothing wrong with either of these things to some extent. But here's the thing. There is no earnestness here. There is no heart in this. This corporate speak is not sincerity. This is, performative wokeness. I have zero doubts, and it was almost certainly workshopped by, whichever union-busting firm that REI hired to advise them on this process. It is, in fact, insincere. It's plastic. It's not real. It sounds like confessions at gunpoint do. A person just saying words because they feel like they have to. It's a performance. Performative words from lawyers performed by literal C-suite dorks. Anyway, let's move on.
By the National Labor Relations Board that the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union filed a petition for an election at our SoHo store in New York. And since then, I'm sure you've heard from lots of employees across the co-op. Maybe we can start by you sharing some of what you've heard.
Hey, good luck to SoHo REI employees.
Well, thank you, Wilma. Thanks for hosting, and hello to everyone that is listening. For those of you who I have not had the chance to meet, I use he, him pronouns, and I'm speaking to you today from the traditional lands of the Coast Salish peoples. And
more plastic words. Even if, Eric and Wilma really believe this stuff, these words are plastic. They're artificial. They mean nothing beyond fulfilling some sort of wokeness requirement that they felt they had to include or were told that they should include. And, most likely it's the latter. They were told to include this stuff by the lawyers that they hired to help bust this union. They're running down the checklist and ticking off boxes. Hell, the sentences with the pronoun and native land stuff, that they used in the intros for both Wilma and Eric are word for word exactly the same except for the proper names. They're reading a form letter off of a card with the blanks filled in with their names, pronouns, and proper tribal names. This is absolutely the world's worst Mad Lib game ever played.
Thank you to anyone who sent me a note over the last couple of weeks for taking the time to send your thoughts, your concerns, your direct feedback, and yes, many questions. And Wilma, I hope to answer some of those questions during this conversation and help me make sure we give people information on where to find more facts and answers before we sign off today, assuming we don't get to everything.
I am literally rolling my eyes right now. Thank you? No. This dude has been shitting his pants ever since the workers announced this, or whenever some snitch leaked it to him. And he is absolutely not happy to be here and answering these questions. Which, by the way, I pretty much guarantee that he will not answer those questions by the end of this podcast.
I want employees to know I read every note I receive, always, and that's no matter the topic.
Wow, so brave, Eric.
We capture the feedback, and we do our best to have someone follow up directly or address your questions and concerns through our normal communication tools. Now, the fact
we capture the feedback, huh? They follow up and address questions and concerns. No, they don't. If they did, they might not be where they are right now today. Openly being adversarial with and fighting against their employees. They gather employee concerns in the trash folders on their computers. It goes right into the recycle bin, okay? Then they give them lip service in morning meetings before the pre-shift jumping jacks and the synchronized cheer, which maintains the social order through some sort of ritualistic yet effective bullshit. Most likely.
That you take the time to reach out directly is part of what I believe makes REI such a special place.
A special place for the shareholders, not the workers.
You're here because you care. You care enough to reach out and speak up. And that fact itself is central to what I hope we'll discuss today. And to your question, Wilma, over the last few weeks, many of our employees have sent me questions specific to what is happening in SoHo. I think it's important that we all remember, because of the petition that's been filed and the legal process that we are now in, we cannot answer all of those questions. And that doesn't mean I am choosing not to share what I know with you.
Like I said a second ago, they won't be answering any real questions here. And this is common. When my company location had, a anti-union meeting, we got a live meeting because it was pre-COVID, but it was the same thing. Even if they technically can address something, they won't. And they'll hide behind the, oh no, it's a legal process argument every single time. And that's 90% bullshit.
It just means we're in a legal process, and the law does not allow me to do so. But that said, there will be a time and there will be a place to share more, and employees have my commitment that we will do so.
Well, Eric.
And I guess to be as fair as possible here, there actually are legal issues inherent in this process, but still, they do not want to really engage here either way. They just want the floor to speak uninterrupted and to try to convince you that you're wrong for wanting to band together and to fight the people who are hurting you. That's what they're there to do in this podcast.
I do know that one of the top questions that must be on people's minds is why REI doesn't think unionization is the right thing for the co-op or for the employees. Maybe you can speak a little to that.
Sure, Wilma.
Okay, so a couple of things here. Why doesn't REI want a union? Because it may cut into shareholder payouts. That's the nuts and bolts of it. Let's start there. They're going to list some other reasons as this podcast goes on, I'm sure, but the only real reason is profits. Then we can go on to power and control. They lose it when the union is involved. They can't screw employees over at their whim to squeeze every last bloody penny from their rapidly degrading body. They lose the ability to change shifts at the last minute and to throw single mothers' lives into chaos. They lose the ability to fire you on the spot with no recourse for the employees. And they hold that sort of Damocles over your head to force you to do things that you don't want to do and to accept things that you don't want to accept. And the other thing is, sorry, I lost my thought here. The part where she says that the co-op is for employees, that a union isn't the right thing for the co-op or the employees. Okay, so this isn't the kind of co-op most of us think about. It's a consumer co-op. It's a co-op for the customers. In other words, customers are the members, not the workers. Now, when I've mentioned co-ops in the past, it's worker co-ops. Places where the actual workers are the actual owners, not the customers. And this is an important distinction that we shouldn't lose sight of, and it's something that REI is very careful with on their own website and press releases. They always say things like the co-op and the employees. There is always a separation because there has to be one. But I bet these dorks will just try to slide co-op into these answers like the employees are part of it, like they're one big family, and I guarantee they're going to talk about family in here a bunch, even though they definitely aren't. So let's keep an ear out for that.
I want to be very clear about one thing. We fully support the rights of our employees to speak and act for what they believe. And that includes the right of our team in SoHo to explore, pursue, and ultimately vote on the question of unionization. It's their.
And this part here, they pretty much have to say because of the legalities that Wilma and Eric are both talking about previously. Right? This is why Wilma is here to police this, to make sure that Eric doesn't slip up.
Decision to make, and we're going to respect their right in this process.
They almost certainly will not respect their right in this process.
Look, Wilma, I understand this is an issue where feelings run strong, and I want everybody at the co-op to hear this. The team in SoHo are co-op employees first and foremost. They're part of our co-op community today, and they will be part of our community tomorrow, no matter what.
And there you have Eric, the CEO. He says, the team in SoHo are co-op employees first and foremost. And then he says that, God, I'm trying to remember exactly what he said, but he said that they're part of our co-op community. And that is where they're trying to slide that co-op term in there, right? Eventually, they're going to stop saying co-op and employees, or that the workers are co-op employees. They're just going to say they're part of the co-op. It's our co-op. It's our family, our community. They're just going to beat this into the dirt. It's a shift from co-op employees to co-op family. And, it's trying to gaslight the workers into thinking that REI, the co-op, the customers actually care about the workers. And we had the same thing in our union drive. They came in and they said, we're family. We're friends. Why would you break that up? Right? And give me a break, dorks. Nobody believes this nonsense.
So to your question of why, I'd like to, share some thoughts really from two perspectives. From a co-op perspective, and I will also offer my opinion on why I do not believe a union will serve REI employees' best interests. Let me start by saying unions are important and valuable, and they play a vital role in supporting the rights of workers across many workplaces, companies, and industries.
He doesn't believe that.
In fact, many of the workplace laws we now have in place can be traced back to union support.
Okay, so here we are getting to kind of the meat and potatoes of this whole argument. And before I go on, I just want to point out something that every union busting company has said since unions became legal. And it became illegal to simply shoot your employees if they tried to organize. Eric here is saying that, he thinks unions are great. They are so wonderful and needed and have done so much. But they just aren't needed here at REI, just everywhere else. He supports every union worker and every union organization and every organizing drive and every union vote, just not at his company, which just means that he doesn't actually support unions or think that they're good. And going forward here, what he's going to say, I'm going to predict some talking points here, is, the first is to finish ramming home the idea of employers and coworkers as some sort of family. Like, hey, we're a family. Why would you want to bring some antagonistic outside force into this happy family? And I don't know, Eric. Maybe because you guys suck and don't listen. Maybe that's the reason. And then they'll talk about communication. They'll say unions rob workers of their voices, that, unions get between the co-op and their employees, that it's better to individually fight instead of having this grumpy old union speaking for the workers. There'll be probably some sort of spiel about open door policies as well. You can come talk to us, which is just more baseless dissembling about, hey, we listen, we really do, even though we all know that open doors is bullshit if workers have no power. They'll go down this, this basic checklist because it's the same checklist every other union busting company runs down in these sorts of meetings, or podcast in this case.
My father was a teacher in a teachers union and led the union when I was a teenager, and I have experienced unions in other businesses and sectors that I have served. So when people ask,
his father led a union, and he's still fighting them. Unbelievable. Right? This guy got a good life from a good union job, and now he's shitting on them. Unreal.
Why don't we support unions? My answer is simple. We do not oppose unions.
That's a lie. This podcast makes that a lie.
That we don't believe, I do not believe, that introducing a union is the right thing for REI. And more specifically, I believe the presence of union representation will impact our ability to communicate and work directly with our employees and resolve concerns at the speed the world is moving. And that is the core of why we don't think that introducing a union is the right thing for our employees.
Okay, so there's a lot of it. They skipped the family argument so far, but maybe it'll come up later. So first, Eric, your dad, the former union leader, would be sad that you're betraying his legacy. I just want to, make that clear, let you know that. And to paraphrase something from the Gunslinger books by Stephen King, and I might get this slightly wrong, he who busts unions has forgotten the face of his father. Eric Arts has forgotten the face of his father. The world's moving too fast, they'll complain. We can't talk. You want to know the biggest fail point of this whole argument? They say that unions will impact their ability to work directly with workers. And this is bullshit on at least two fronts. One is that bosses can still talk to workers and work with them if you're in a union. The other, and the more important one, is that a union is the workers. It's just all of them at once. It should actually make working with the workers a lot easier. All right, let's go on.
So, Wilma, Allow me to unpack this a little bit.
Yes, unpack it, Eric. Thank you.
A big part of what unions exist to do is to speak for employees where and when they don't have a voice.
No. That is not why unions exist in the first place. And in the second place, is that right? Second place? Yeah, I guess second place. In the second place, when they don't have a voice is such nonsense. He is trying to equate having an open door policy in a public email address as having a voice. What an utter load of horse shit. Having a way to say how oppressed and unhappy you are isn't having a voice. This is like having access to healthcare. It's a bunch of bullshit. Sorry, I keep saying bullshit. I'll try not to swear so much going forward. Being able to materially change your circumstances is having a voice. This is what unions give workers, the ability to proactively change things and to proactively veto things. Shouting into the void, aka open door policies, isn't power. Being able to materially change your world is power.
The very essence of a co-op is actually contrary to that, because in a co-op, we turn towards one another.
This isn't a co-op like we usually think about it. This is a customer-owned co-op. If the co-op's turning towards one another, they're turning towards other customers. It's just unbelievable.
That does not mean we agree on everything. That means we come together based on shared beliefs or common expectations, and we work together to solve problems. That's why we have things like the co-op way. It is our agreement.
The co-op way. Okay, so co-op way. Okay, so this is actually the part where I mentioned earlier where I thought they'd try to slide in the co-op term and make it sound inclusive of employees themselves. I knew it. I effing knew it because I'm trying not to swear as much. These guys are all the same. It's always the same.
With one another in terms of how we will expect each other to behave and to interact. It's why we have open door policies.
Hey, open door policies. There it is. The masquerade of employees having a voice. All right, Eric, thank you.
We've established things like employee inclusion networks to hear voices, to build community. I think it's why we use annual employee engagement surveys and other pulse surveys to understand where your experience is working and where it's not working. And then we work together to make it better.
Employee surveys. I have filled out employee surveys almost every year that I've worked at, the company I work at now, which has been 20 years. And nothing has ever changed because employee surveys are not a damn contract that outlines what can and can't be done. Employee surveys they fill up the landfill. They're pointless. They're pointless exertions. God. I can't believe that these people are even mentioning them. All right, so we'll go on.
I believe every one of you, every employee at REI, has a direct voice in speaking to and influencing every aspect of the employee experience, from health and safety to pay and benefits to where and when REI puts our values into action.
Okay, so this fella is talking about how they supposedly listen to every voice, and they have surveys, and how they supposedly work together to fix everything. And then this Eric dude, this $3 million a year absolute dork, he has the unmitigated gall to say that every employee has a voice to affect their jobs from pay to benefits. That is a load of crap, an enormous load. And that failing is exactly why the SoHo employees are working together to fight back right now.
I know that because I hear from you directly. I value open conversation.
No, he doesn't.
Not only value it, but I expect it, and I need it for me to do my job and for REI to continually get better. For you, our employees, for our members, and for our customers. Every employee has the right to expect me to listen, to hear, to understand concerns and ideas and suggestions. I hold myself to that standard, and I try to hold all REI leaders to that same standard. At the co-op, we learn.
Okay, well, Now you will get a conversation with someone on a more equal footing, a bargaining unit made up of every single employee at once, speaking as a union at one of your flagship stores. Solidarity, by the way. And he says that employees have a right to be heard, that he should be expected to hear their concerns. And that's just not good enough. Just listening isn't good enough. If just listening was good enough, we wouldn't have this disgusting-ass podcast to work our way through, and I'd have never heard of Eric Artz, and I wouldn't have to be assassinating his character right now. And by the way, let me just make this crystal clear for anyone out there. Eric Artz is basically saying that every employee has a right to be heard, and he will listen. Nope, wrong. You shouldn't have the power here, Eric. The workers should be, not merely talking to you. They should be ordering you. You are the one who's lucky to be here, Eric, not them. They aren't your children.
Learn and grow by listening. We improve by being open to feedback, both positive and negative. It doesn't mean we always agree, but it does always mean we should listen and be heard even when we disagree. And that doesn't mean...
And all right, so we're getting more and more of this blathering nonsense about listening. Listening is shit. You should have done something, Eric.
Every problem is solved. It doesn't mean that every individual concern can be addressed. I don't know of any workplace that doesn't have issues or problems from time to time. But the real question in my mind is when those issues come up, when we are faced with challenges, how do we best meet and overcome them? And for me anyway, I want to do that.
Okay, apparently you don't, you dork. Like, your biggest store is rebelling and going to war with you because you aren't addressing their concerns well enough. Where is the disconnect here? The disconnect is that profit is more important than human beings.
Working together, working directly with you, our employees.
Hey, good. They want to work together too. Your employees want to negotiate directly with REI for a contract. So here it is one more time, Eric. Dealing with a union is exactly what you say you want to do. It is working directly with your employees. After all, who makes up the union bargaining unit? Yeah, your employees, you goofball.
And Wilma, that doesn't mean we or I always get it right. We will make mistakes. We all do. Every workplace.
And don't do this all companies make mistakes BS. Just deal with your own mistakes.
Including here at REI, can always strive to be better. As we reflect.
He did. he did the right after I said that, he did the all companies make mistakes. Okay. All right, let's go on, Eric.
On the last 2 years, we've navigated the pandemic. We have all faced challenges in how we work, how we connect, taking care of ourselves, our families, each other. We have been put in situations and under stress levels that few of us had experienced before, nor hopefully will ever experience at this rate of magnitude again. And for the most part, I am extremely proud of how we as a co-op worked through and together supported one another during this challenging time period. And I said, for the most part, because I know there have been real challenges over the last 2 years. Most of all, because I...
So again, we have more of that, sneaking the co-op term to pretend like this is a worker co-op, like it's all encompassing. And again, community, family. Keep saying it like they're all in it together. He says the co-op work together to support and take care of each other. Like what? The customers banded together to help each other? They banded together to help the employees? Get out of here with that nonsense. Jesus. And this is just more of him trying to associate the co-op with employees in the family nonsense. Do not fall for this crap.
The connections and the relationships we have with one another that have made the co-op so special haven't been happening in the same way in normal conditions. We strive to have a workplace that is fun, that's engaging. We do outside trainings and events, and we have awards and recognition and community stewardship projects. COVID has not allowed us to do all of those things. So no matter.
I will say this. REI, they actually have a pretty good rep as a place to work. I'll give them that. Their Glassdoor rating is pretty good.
What's happened the past 2 years, it's been too long, and we need to get back to putting fun back into our work. As I think back over the last 2 years, in my personal experience, the best part of my job has been the time I've spent on the road, in our stores, connecting to and listening to our employees, being in our DCs, out in the communities that we serve, dragging a camping trailer across the country to see as many stores as possible, as safely as possible. But I know that.
And, an interesting thing here, this guy gets his own trailer, drags it around, making millions of dollars a year, being as safe as possible. And who is he visiting? He's visiting people who are stuck in buildings, probably overcrowded. The distribution centers, he talks about visiting the stores, people risking their health, and he's out in a trailer. So, super brave, right?
That hasn't been enough. For me, for you, our connections aren't as strong as we want them to be, nor as strong as we all need them to be.
Obviously not, Eric.
So,
not.
Right on, Eric.
Hey, Wilma.
And just thank you for your candor and your reflections and observations. I appreciate it. So,
candor? Candor will never appear in something like this. There was no candor.
I do know one of the themes that we've heard as we've been out talking to employees is that not everyone feels seen or heard. How would you respond to that, Eric?
Well, I've heard that too, Wilma. And
So I swear if he says that he has heard everybody, I'm going to throw my laptop through this window.
I tell you, that's hard for me to hear, but I know that it is absolutely true.
Hey, he copped to it. All right, Eric.
The fact that we're in this spot in SoHo, in this moment, means something didn't work. If a group of employees needed to seek different representation for their interests and to speak for them, then I failed in some fundamental way.
You sure did,
This
Eric.
is a failure of the co-op way and something.
But I do want to take a second here and say that even if Eric had been a better CEO, the REI employees still should form a union. Workers all across the country should. This isn't just about, not hearing a few employees across the country or even every employee at, one single store. It's about worker power versus corporate power. And this is what it comes down to at the end of the day. This is exactly what unions are for. To level that playing field, to level the bargaining table. And, unions aren't just about being heard, like Eric lied to us about earlier in this podcast. So every time a boss tells you about an open door policy, and they pretend that, to earnestly listen to you before decidedly not fixing anything, that right there is the power imbalance between a corporation or, in this case, a consumer co-op and a single worker. The worker always loses, but a group of workers, a class of workers versus a company, now that can be a win.
That we obviously must address. I know that. I see that. I take responsibility for that, and I own that. But we are here now, and over the coming weeks, this legal process will play out. The employees of SoHo will ultimately vote and decide the issue for themselves. I wish we were in a different place, and again, I hold myself accountable for that failing, but I believe in many of the things we do here at REI. If we don't acknowledge where we are in an honest way, there is no way to get to where we want to be and need to be.
Sorry, I cut you off, Wilma. But when Eric says addressing this situation, I think he said in an honest way, that would require you to not fight your employees' organizing efforts, Eric. But you can't do that because your precious co-op consumer owners want their kickbacks. So go ahead, Wilma.
Thanks, Eric. And I do also just want to point out something you mentioned earlier, which is that we are now in a formal legal process in SoHo. And the employees there will, as you said, ultimately decide whether they want a union to represent them. And
here we see why Wilma is here. She's the corporate lawyer, the general counsel for this company, the person who refused to acknowledge that fact in her introduction and still hasn't mentioned it. And it just bugs me that she's pretending that she's here as chief diversity officer and social impact honcho, rather than as the lawyer guardrail that she is.
And under the law, I think it's important for folks to appreciate that our ability to act or promise any specific course correction at this time is constrained for legal reasons. And this is pretty limited to SoHo, but I think it's just important to note that
it won't be limited to SoHo soon, Wilma. Like I said in our Unions Rising episode, union efforts lead to more union efforts, just like we are seeing with Starbucks as more and more locations across the country file for representation. The latest being the Starbucks in Mesa, Arizona, which is awesome. Solidarity to Starbucks as well. Or sorry, not to Starbucks employees. Jesus. Fuck Starbucks.
there are legal restrictions from us being able to take certain actions to course correct. But in light of that, what do you see coming over the next few days or weeks?
Well, I'll tell you what I see. I see a union vote coming, and hopefully it's a firm yes. Sorry to cut you off, Eric.
Well, to your point, Wilma, to enter this question here, I think you're absolutely right. And that's really the core of why I'm concerned about a union presence in SoHo, or frankly, any of our stores. The reality is, as you've just shared, that under the law, if the union is voted in, then much like the situation you described in SoHo, our ability to listen and communicate directly with our employees on anything that impacts their job, whether it's in...
This is another lie. It's absolutely a lie. A union is their workers. There's nothing between them and their workers in a union.
Individual or a group concern, and then to work together to respond quickly to address those concern changes, we would be required to only deal with the union on matters that impact our employees' work life, and there's a legal process we have to follow to do so.
Okay, so first off, this is just ridiculous. They are complaining that there will exist a framework for employees to have a legal say in what happens to them in their workplace. Yeah, there will be a contractual framework to abide by. This is a good thing. It is 1,000% better than an open door policy where nothing ever happens. Which is demonstrated by the fact that we are seeing not just this union drive, but thousands of others across the country over the past couple of years. The desire for this sort of protection is driven by the complete lack of such protections beforehand and the oppression and the abuse that came with that lack of protection.
I think it's already difficult because of the legal process we are bound to follow in SoHo until the vote occurs. We are prohibited from talking about or taking action on specific concerns the SoHo team is sitting with until the vote. If the union vote...
and listen, this is partly true. There things do kind of go into a holding pattern with work rules while you're going through a vote. But here's the thing. Those problems currently exist because Eric did nothing about them in the first place.
If prevails, we will then, by law, begin a negotiating process with the union, a representative for those employees, and follow the laws that govern those discussions, however long that takes. If the union vote does not prevail, we will then be able to re-engage directly with each employee and the SoHo team, and then begin the process to fully understand what led us here. Again, I want to be very respectful. A union may be...
Basically, what he's saying here is that if you vote no to union representation, then they can go back to the status quo of pretending to read your emails and having flaccid, ineffectual morning meetings talking about how you were heard, but we won't take any actions on your concerns because it's just too inconvenient and it might cost money to do so.
What our employees ultimately decide they want, and that is their legal right. And as I said earlier, Wilma, we don't always get it right, but I do believe.
So Eric here, he's saying that he wanted to be respectful. A union may be what the employees want, etc. And, basically saying that they'll honor that. And no, they won't. Like, Eric has been cursing his employees from the moment he heard whispers of this. He was screaming about losing his power and his leverage and worrying about his little co-op consumer owners not getting their kickback and being unhappy.
We try. And I want us all to be proud of the REI that we stored and being part of our
Well, they obviously aren't doing enough.
future. And while there may be times it doesn't feel like it, we absolutely do listen when we speak up. We take our employee and your concerns very seriously.
And again, obviously, Eric has failed to do this for his SoHo employees. That's it. That's what's going on. This guy has failed.
I was just thinking, Wilma, time and again, employees have seen us take real action based upon their ideas and their suggestions. In the earliest days of the pandemic, we closed our stores weeks earlier than any other businesses, weeks earlier than union shops, and we kept them closed until we were confident we had the right protocols and procedures in place to operate safely. That was for our employees, to keep you safe.
Hey, listen, that's not too bad, I guess. REI did better than some percentage of American companies. Fine. Okay, fine, you can have it.
We turned off the taps and stepped into unknown territory. And in the moment, we had no idea if the co-op would even survive. Yet we paid everyone for the first 30 days. And when we reopened, we brought back more than 95% of our retail teams from furlough. And even during the furlough period, we paid 100% of every employee's benefits.
Hey, good. They did the bare minimum here. Let's all clap for them. And as to, turning off the taps and wondering if the co-op would survive, again, this is a consumer co-op, not an employee co-op. We need to keep reminding ourselves of that. I don't care, to be honest. And you paid the first 30 days? That's nice. That's awesome. But then what? People suffered. Now, I don't know if Eric stopped receiving pay during this period, but something tells me that, $3 million a year Eric here, he didn't exactly suffer from food shortages while his workers did.
Reflect on those days now when we came back up, and it wasn't easy for any of us. And some of the protocols and safety procedures were not working for you. We heard you, we adjusted, we listened to your feedback, and we moved quickly. And now as we fast forward, even to this year, the national and local protocols have been crazy for us all. But we've constantly worked together to improve, sometimes moving too slow, sometimes moving too fast, but always with your safety at the center and always working to make it better based upon listening, upon learning, and adjusting as quickly as possible together. And I think as many of you...
So all of that was not much more than, obviously self-backpatting and an attempt to, trying to mix the consumer co-op with us and we and trying to allude to community and family narratives. It's all bullcrap. It's all an attempt to basically gaslight the employees into this weird friendship and brotherhood fantasy that definitely does not exist.
Or I hope our employees know, in 2020, we lost $50 million as a co-op. We shared that with you in the spring of last year. We shared that with our members. I think we have to remember businesses that persistently lose.
Okay, so I actually looked up a bunch of REI stuff before, starting this recording. Like I said, I think I said in the intro. It's actually what I was doing my previous couple of evenings. And Eric here says that REI lost $50 million, and I did not see that anywhere. I mean, I saw the claim, but not the actual loss. The closest thing I saw was a loss of $33 million in one of their financial reports. And yeah, I believe that this sort of lie or exaggeration is important to highlight. What I did see was REI didn't make what they expected. This is not the same thing as a loss, I don't think. Like last year, I expected to make well more than double what I actually did. But I hurt my shoulder in June and I couldn't work until mid-January of this year. Did I lose that much money? Of course not. Not really. I just didn't make as much as I expected to. And anyway, it was 2020, the year of doom. I guess REI should have planned better. And, this isn't to totally disregard a company losing money. I mean, people work for this company. I don't want REI to fail. but just don't exaggerate and lie. And this next part here, I'm going to read if I can find it on my laptop. And it's from REI's own financial reporting on its own website. Okay, so it's, quote, "The co-op reported no profits in 2020, but ended the year in a strong cash position, debt-free, after investing millions in its impact work," end quote. So they claim no profits. And honestly, I'm the guy that's like, I question that. I suspect creative bookkeeping, at least to some extent. But let's move past it. They probably lost some money. And then they say they are in a strong cash position, just meaning that they have a stockpile of liquid money. And they are debt-free, even after investing millions in its impact work, which that investment is in reality almost definitely just a massive tax write-off to lower their exposure to taxes.
Lose money, will not be able to invest in employees, have the capital to invest.
Again, according to themselves, they came through 2020 pretty well off considering everything that was going on.
Invest in winning strategies, and frankly won't be around for long. We were willing to risk it all when we did not have the data.
They didn't risk it all.
And the facts to know that we could keep our employees safe.
They absolutely did not risk it all. They risked very little. They still did okay and had good cash flow. They increased memberships that year, and they opened 4 new stores, and they sold a headquarters building for a lot of money.
And we've continued to invest significantly in keeping our employees safe. I even think about outside Wilma. Each and every year, we choose to close our doors on the busiest shopping day of the year. Why? Because our employees, the folks in our stores and DCs, told us that working on Black Friday was an awful experience. They had never seen the light of day if they worked in retail for a long period of time. We had the opportunity to make a different choice, to take the uncommon path, and demonstrate that there are things more important than sales.
Hey, listen, this is good. I don't want to lie to you. Nobody should have to go through the absolute horror show that is Black Friday in the United States. Shop on other days, you dorks. Have sales on other days, retailers. Jesus Christ, it's a nightmare out there. I wouldn't want to work on Black Friday, and thankfully I never have to. Anyway, let's go on. Let's hear Eric lie to us a little more.
So, Eric,
Sorry, I guess we're going to listen to Wilma lie to us a little more, or set up Eric for another lie with a pitch down the middle.
Shifting a little bit, one of the other things that we've heard about has been in connection with pay. So can you talk about how REI approaches pay at the retail level?
Sure. And
He better not say market-based pay. He better not do it.
No, I understand that pay is a big concern for every employee, always. Our approach on pay is designed to let us move quickly to adjust to changing conditions. We focus on competitive pay at market level. It's our goal to play above the...
You said market level pay. The son of a bitch. Nothing should make workers more leery about what's being said in regards to salary than market-based pay. Screw the market. The market does not and never will pay you what you're truly worth.
The average of the market, and we make adjustments when things change. In the past 4 years, we have increased our base wages, our base hourly wages outside of merit 5 times, and we've spent $60 million to do so. In SoHo, for example, we've increased average non-management wages by 43% since 2018. 2 of those adjustments occurred in the last 18 months.
Okay, listen, I'm not going to knock workers getting much needed raises. But the fact is that the workers deserve much more even now. And just think about how they increased wages by 43% in a couple of years. That's how much they were getting underpaid just 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We might even say that the workers deserve a real co-op, like actual ownership maybe, huh? How about that, Eric?
The last in January of this year. And that's not considering other changes we've made, certainly in the last 2 years, to our benefits packages, or even things like the supplemental bonus that we did here at the end of 2021. So making adjustments, at these levels and at this frequency, why do we do that? It's from.
Well, I'm going to bet that it wasn't because of, the employees, even though he will say how much he loves and values them and so on, I'm sure. He's going to say it's because of market conditions. Just watch.
Listening to our employees, to engaging, to doing the work. We have good teams that are very.
Son of a bitch. He said it's because of the employees, but I don't believe him. So let's just move on and forget that I was apparently wrong there.
Focused on the market dynamics, the micro market dynamics in this country right.
And there it is. I was not wrong. I take back everything I said. There's the market rate nonsense, though I have never heard anyone go so far as to talk about the micro market before. Not in a framework like this.
Now, and it's a market that's changing rapidly. Pre-COVID, we were reacting to deflationary periods, but increasing rents. Right now, we're in a different place with inflation levels that we're seeing right now. It's something we, nor anyone, the government, nobody predicted that we would find ourselves in this inflationary moment that we're in. So I expect us to continue to be very attentive and focused on these dynamics. And I would expect us to continue to make these types of adjustments as we move forward.
So, all right. So listen, there's an enormous complicated issue with this inflation excuse, but that's probably better served by another episode, but I didn't want to mark it. So let's just push on through.
Thanks for that, Eric. So my last question is, I've heard you say a number of times over the past few years that every challenge or bump along the way ultimately makes us stronger. And how do you envision us coming through this as a co-op community?
Well, to your point, Wilma.
Okay, again, us, we, the co-op community, they sneak this narrative in everywhere. They think they can get away with it. Please do not lose sight that this is not a family. It's not a community, and it's not a friendship. This is 100% a fight between labor and management, and they are, no matter what the bosses tell us, and that, both of these groups are and should be antagonistic towards each other. Unless the workers are the owners, of course. So let's see what Eric has to say about that.
I think, every challenge does come with an opportunity to reimagine and
opportunity to reimagine. What a clown.
Look, I know that the last 2 years have been hard on.
This guy is absolutely defining the people I call C-suite dorks. Eric Arts is a perfect distillation of what those people try to be in these sorts of press releases and anti-union screeds disguised as, how would you describe this? A conversational podcast.
On families, friends, communities, and all we care about. 2 years of a global pandemic that's brought unthinkable challenges and disruptions. I know our employees are tired and frustrated. I know there are times where the ways we work, even the changes we've made in the name of health and safety, have made things harder, not easier. I wish I could snap my fingers and fix all of the challenges we're facing as a broad society and so on, but I can't. Not in the moment. We certainly have big aspirations.
I just want to say here that nobody is asking Eric to snap his fingers and fix all of the changes that we're facing as a broad society, or even a narrow society. They just want a say in what goes on in their workplace. That's it. Eric doesn't have to be emperor of the world. Just listen to the workers and make their workplace better, safer, and more profitable. Or not profitable, but for the workers. higher wages, better paid.
When we think about, our purpose agenda and climate and racial equity, but we are here today. What I can do and what I commit to do is to always do my best to lead by putting our values first, by focusing on our mission and our purpose, by listening to employee voices, your voice. And when we see things we can do better, we will do so.
Well, you could not stand in the way of your employees forming a union, Eric. You could actually listen to your workers instead of just hearing them, Eric. And right now, your SoHo employees are once again telling you something. They want a union, and you aren't listening, Eric. You dork.
We're going to take a top to bottom look at this and everything that impacts our employee experience and our employees. So much has happened. We've tried to do our best to adapt to everything, but it needs a fresh look, and we're not going to do this in a vacuum.
No, you're going to do it with a
union. We're going to do it with employee input.
Yeah, they're going to do it with employee input as a union. Well, they'll actually have some strength.
It impacts their job. You have a right to provide feedback. You also have a right to understand why we've made a decision.
And listen, regarding a decision, explaining why is fine. But letting your workers actually have a say beforehand is actually best, or at least a lot better. And I'm not talking about just listening. I'm talking about having, real power to really affect things. If it impacts your job, you have the right to feedback? No, dork. If it impacts their job, they deserve a real say in what happens before it happens. Not just a way to make unheard complaints, Eric.
And we'll say, Wilma, there's glass half full, glass half empty. There's a lot of things that have worked great for us that have, we've made some profound changes. We've been able to look and see things in different lights going through this crisis. I firmly believe we're going to come through it.
Jesus, I don't know if I can finish this thing. I don't know. 5 minutes left? There's 5 minutes left, and it feels like this is just going to devolve into, corporate pablum, but let's let it go a few more minutes, or maybe another minute. At some point these things just get so boring and so careful that it's not even fun to point it out anymore, but we'll keep pushing forward.
Stronger than we entered it, but there's always things that we need to take a fresh look at. We've always known that we're at our best when we truly put our employees first. And we must always make sure and be accountable to the fact that we are walking the walk in everything we do.
Ugh.
I love that, Eric. Well said. And thanks for forecasting some of the work ahead. So before we close, any parting thoughts that you'd like to share?
Let's hear it, Eric.
Sure. I think at the end of the day, we are a company made up of thousands of people who get up every day excited to come to work and fight for something that matters.
I'm going to reality check Eric here. Virtually none of those people wake up cheery and happy to go to work. Work sucks, no matter where you are. All right, so go on, Eric. I'm gonna try to let this run a little longer before I comment, just to get through the last 4 minutes and get to the end. But if anything comes up, I'll be here.
Frankly, to have some fun doing it. My job as your CEO is to make sure that all of your basic needs are met so that when you show up to work each day, you can have fun, bring your authentic self, and fight for.
Bring your authentic self.
What matters. You need to be paid competitively, feel safe and respected, have comprehensive health insurance, and know that your voices will be heard.
That's what unions do, Eric. They get you paid competitively. You feel safe because you have actual say and safety. And you're respected. And you probably have better health insurance too. And your voice is guaranteed to be heard. And I probably forgot something else you said in that paragraph, but that's all right.
Well, I think there's a centering point for us that I think about a lot. And this kind of goes back to even the idea of REI and the co-op. And it began, I believe, from our commonality.
Okay. So, well, I'll let it go on. But no, I won't. This is just more, REI and the co-op. Just, hammering that into this conversation where it doesn't belong. It just feels like this whole podcast is turning into a corporate speak death spiral. But I'll move on.
A common purpose centered on time outside. That is what brought us all together. We're inspired by our commonality, by connection. And certainly right now with everything that's happening, we want more of it, especially 2 years into this crisis. We care. We want to make things better for others. We want to share our expertise and what we know with our members and our customers. We want to make a difference. Our work needs to mean something. I think about 1938 when 23 climbers turned to each other in their commonality.
Commonality, family, community.
Faced with a problem in the moment, and they solved it. And they made it better. Little did they know for generations to come. And here we are, 84 years later. The problems we face today are very different than 1938, but our commonality, centered on life outside, remains steadfast, as does our desire to leave it better than we found it. And I think that's who we are.
Okay. I think, there's like a minute and a half left. I think I'm just going to kill it because I don't know if I can take any more of this. So that's it. And that is a basic anti-union speech delivered by a CEO dork and his top lawyer ghoul, costumed as a podcast. And this is precisely the sort of messaging that you would get if this was, if it was an in-person meeting in any large company across the country. This is what Starbucks got. This is what Amazon workers got when they were trying. It's the exact same message my coworkers and I received when we wanted to unionize. It's the same garbage that was force-fed, like I said, to Amazon workers in Bessemer, Alabama, when they wanted to unionize. It's the same crap every worker hears when they want to join a union. It's a form letter that is slightly changed to fit every workplace that it's deployed to. We are family. Why put someone between us? You'll lose your individual voice. Never again will, we be able to do anything at all without lengthy, time-consuming argument with the union. Hey, we listen. No, really, we do listen. Okay, we didn't listen. But now we see the light. Now we will listen. So long as you don't want, more pay or benefits. So long as the thing you want is free and doesn't affect the bottom line at all. REI just took this basic premise and soaked it in performative wokeness before rolling it out in this ridiculous format. And I'll sign off from this by saying this. You and your bosses, you and your company are not a family. You are not friends. Workers and our bosses, and especially the capital owners, are in a fight, an actual fight. And right now, only the capital owners are fighting in that fight. This is why you want a union. A union can't get between you and the capital owner. You are the union. The union represents you, and no matter how imperfect any particular union might be, it is 100% a better way to fight for what we want than any individual actions we can take. They will not listen to you. They have no reason to. They have to listen to a union. Solidarity forever. And that, my friends, is the end of the episode. Thank you for listening. It's really great that you guys keep coming back. And as you know, we have a YouTube channel as well. It's Tribunus Plebis Media. You can search that and find it. It comes right up. Rate, review if you can on Apple. There's a link in the description. And we also have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description of the podcast, or the video if you're watching this, where you can sign up for monthly subscriptions or just leave a tip if you don't want to commit to, monthly payments. Anything helps. It does take a lot of work to do this podcast, so any help would be awesome. And if you don't have any money or you just don't want to, give anything, that's cool too. This podcast will always be free and ad-free. So thank you guys. I love you all.